Hello everybody, once again at Vintage Iron Range Dirt Track Racing. I am over at the home of Bob Roine from Hibbing, Minnesota. Bob, it's good to see you.
Same to you.
How have you been doing?
Fairly good.
Fairly good.
Yeah.
Say, Bob, you're one of the first guys now that I've interviewed that really wasn't a driver. I'm interviewing you more for your services that you provided to racers, although you did drive for a little tiny bit, right?
Yep.
When did you drive?
58 for a little bit, and 61 maybe in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
There, 61 or 2.
So you lived here around in like Cook or somewhere?
I lived 19 miles north of Chisholm.
Okay. And then at that time, Hibbing wasn't racing.
No.
They were off for a little bit for whatever reason. So you'd go to Rapids and race.
Yep.
And then but you only drove for a short period of time.
Yep. Very short.
And then you started having people drive for you.
Yep.
And so you then started your career as a car owner.
Yep.
Do you remember who you had drive right away in those early years?
Well, Harry Minzer, Bob Percy, and let's see, who else? Oh, Kaylee Emerson's driven first, but not in that early
yeah,
ages.
he was much more modern. But back in the day then, in the late 50s, early 60s, you had Minzer and Percy drive.
Yeah, they were.
But Percy, he didn't want to drive your car.
No, because he had 2 cars.
So he ran free for a little bit, but he wanted to concentrate on his own operation. Yep. Okay. And then then you ended up moving to Illinois.
Yep.
And did a little bit of racing there. And then you'd come back here on your vacation for 4 or 5 weeks and play around at the racetracks again. But then eventually you moved back to the Hibbing area full time.
Yep. When
was that? Was that like mid-60s?
Well, yeah, because I started to work for L&M Radiator in 74 or 71 and 70, and I worked for those guys, Virginia and Evelyn, before, so it had to be in the early. Okay,
so then when you got back here and got settled back in, then you started becoming a full-time car owner again for various people. Donnie Oz, you owned a late model, that Rander car for a while. I remember it was a white with a red number 2. Beautiful car in its day. Absolutely beautiful. And then you owned a late model and I think a mod for Brad Hansen.
Yeah.
And then you had Danny McMahon drive a late model.
Yeah.
That was Danny McMahon's first late model, I believe, right? When he moved out of mods to late models, I think he drove for you.
I can't remember if there was one before that he did, but I don't think there was.
No, I think you went right out of I think you went right out of mods to your Larry Shaw late model that you bought from Paul Gilbert's.
Yep.
Fixed it all up, and then had Donnie Oz drive for a bit, had Timmy McMahon drive for about a year or 2, I think. And then you also had Kaylee Emerson drive a car for you. And then you built your own modified too. White number 10 that you drove for a little bit, and then you ended up selling that to John and Frank Champ for Brian Vessel to race, and that was Brian Vessel's one and only modified that he raced. So then you built a lot of cars as well. Do you remember some of the guys you built cars for?
Well, the people's names, I'm not sure what they were. I sold them a modified, and they were in Florida. They lived in Florida. And they took it all the way back down there, and I says, I'll give you a heck of a deal, but you got to let me know every week how you're doing. And he called every week and tell me how the car went, and he said it went really good.
But you don't remember his name?
No, no, they were from the northern part of Florida.
Okay, but you also built cars. Then you built some of Brad Hansen's mods.
Yep.
You'd had Danny McMahon drive a late model for you, but you built the super stock that Danny McMahon raced for a
he was
season.
my test pilot.
Yeah, and wow, did he do a whale of a job. I think, would you guys win like 12 out of 15
Yeah, we
features
won a lot of races with it,
short year? Yep. And then you built a mod then that, like I said, Brian Vessel drove.
Yep.
Then you were building some supers there for a while. I remember Mike Duville.
Yep.
Ed Oz.
Yep.
Jody Olson.
Yep.
Ryan Aho. And I know you built a super stock, possibly modified for John Baltich.
Yeah.
Among other people that we can't think of.
Well, I can't think of all of them because I never write any of that down. You know?
And then you are responsible for getting Bob Reed's racing career back on track.
Yeah.
Because he took quite a few years off, but then I believe it was that Larry Shaw late
Yep.
model that you had
Yep.
Danny McMahon drive.
Yep.
After Danny McMahon was done driving for you, you went through that car, completely refurbished
Oh,
it
yeah.
to brand new, and sold that to Bobby Reed.
Yep.
And so Bobby Reed got back on the track for probably 20 years or so.
Yeah,
So
he was out for a long time.
You extended Bobby Reed's career. And then basically you did the same thing too. I remember with a Rayburn late model that you refurbished and then sold to Steve Vessel.
Yeah.
And you started Steve Vessel's late model career, his modern late model career, because I know Steve ran late models back in the late 80s, but they were kind of a late model super stock combo.
Well, that's
thing,
what
but,
they were,
you know.
you know, more or less.
You know,
The
but-
stubs were stock stubs.
Yeah, yep. You also did a lot of trailer building.
Yep.
Whatever people need, trailer refurbishing, and then you did repair for various people,
Yes.
setup services for people, and then you're toward the end of your career building cars. Then you had your son Mark start helping you
Right.
and get involved, and who's turned it into quite an operation. He builds a lot of cars, super stocks, modifieds, A mods, even a few late models. And he does a whale of a job. Those cars go pretty darn good. But you turned it over to him completely. Do you remember when you kind of got
I
out
don't
of it?
remember.
I think it might have been late 90s to early 2000s.
Well, the thing is, when I moved here, I built that shop for me someplace to go, you know, when I retire.
Mm-hmm. the
And
shop that you're at now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
originally I remember you lived in Kitsville,
Yep.
and you had a 3-stall garage
Right.
in Kitsville that you did a lot of your work out of.
Right.
And then you guys built this place out here
Right.
in Hibbing on Tammany Road. Beautiful place, I might add. I'm very jealous. But yeah, so you've had a lengthy career all the way from 1958
Yeah.
up until you were a car owner into the 2000s.
Yep.
And do you still go to the races a lot?
Every Saturday night if I can, if they
you-
race.
So you're a fixture at the track. So you're still well into it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming you go visit and bug Mark out in the shop when he's busy
Well,
working.
yeah, I'm in there all the time, but he don't like that, you know.
And you've been recently inducted into the 2018 class, the Hall of Fame at the
That's
Hibbing
nice.
Raceway.
That's nice.
And I guess for all your efforts from 1958 up until this day is kind of what you've been recognized for.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But,
thank you.
Is there anything you might want to say to anybody that's watching this video, or do you have anything to
Not
say
that I
before
can
we
think
go?
of. No, except that I think myself, or maybe I shouldn't even say this on there, but I think they should learn more how to put the car together rather than say, here, do this for me and I'll drive it.
Uh-huh.
Because you don't know what, you know, you got to, like Mark even wants to set a car up here. He wants to build a car here, put it together here, put the guy in the car, throw it on the scales, scale it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows the floor is perfectly level where he scales it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you can build a complete car for a guy, and it's a fast car.
Yeah,
But if he doesn't have the skills and the garage power to keep it
keep it going.
maintained,
Yeah,
it's
right.
not going to stay at that high level of performance. That's for sure. So you want to stress to people to
Get more involved in the car.
with the actual
Yeah,
mechanics of it.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right, Bob. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out to do this interview with us, and congratulations on getting inducted into the
Thank you.
Hibbing Raceway Hall of Fame. And we'll see you at the track.
Okie dokie.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Yep.